If you believe the media, a poor Maryland father of the year candidate perhaps, was abducted and kidnapped by the federal government because Trump just wants him out of the country, was sent to El Salvador where he is in danger because he's at this CCOT prison. That's what the media wants us to believe in. Chris Van Hollen, his senator, wants to go and help his constituent by going to El Salvador and speaking with him to make sure he's okay. Well, that's mostly untrue, what I just told you, if you go by the facts. It's Will Chamberlain from the Article 3 Project, senior counsel there. Will, first of all, thanks for coming back on. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
So let's get into what I just said, generally speaking, is what the media wants us to believe and what his defense wants us to believe. Most of that is not true. What we do know about the guy is that he was identified as a possible MS-13 member because he was wearing some clothing and something that the MS-13 gang would normally wear. But the media wants us to think it was a misidentification, that this person was in New York and Garcia's never been to New York, and the whole MS-13 connection is not real. You're here to say it is real, and hopefully you can clear it all up for me.
Yeah. So, I mean, just today, I uncovered a straight up falsehood that was put forward by Abrego Garcia's lawyer in his complaint that was echoed by both the district court judge in her opinion, granting the injunction, and in the Fourth Circuit opinion, one of the Fourth Circuit opinions concurring. This claim that, so to kind of set this up, there was a confidential informant that identified Abrego Garcia as a member of MS-13, identified him as a member of the Westerns clique, and identified his rank in the gang and his handle, his moniker.
If you don't mind, I've got to stop you there. The first time I heard any of that was from Pam Bondi yesterday or the day before, whereas before that, as you said, the lawyers and his family wanted us to believe this was a misidentification and that it was not proven that he was in the gang. You're saying a confidential informant, as Bondi's now reported, said it not only once but twice in two separate courts that in fact he is in the gang.
Yes, that's correct. And so the question then is, how did Abrego Garcia's lawyers deal with this? Well, what they said was, you don't have to take anything that's confidential informants says seriously, because they are wrong about this clique even operating in the DC area. Like, they said that the Department of Justice and the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office both said that the clique operates in Brentwood, New York, where Abrego Garcia has never been. That was the claim from Abrego Garcia's lawyer, and it got echoed everywhere. Okay, here's the thing to understand. There's no basis for that claim at all. It turns out that indeed the Westerns clique is one of the major MS-13 cliques in Maryland and in the DC area. It was identified as such in a Department of Justice indictment from 2010. There's articles referencing that focus on MS-13 that reference the Western Locos gang as being a Maryland clique of MS-13. This is just, and I looked up where, I was trying to figure out where on earth Abrego Garcia's lawyer got this idea that this was a Brentwood-based clique and didn't operate elsewhere.
Right.
And the best I can come up with is that he did a search of the DOJ website, found the one time the Western clique is mentioned on that website, and it had to do with a double murder where one of the victims was a member of the Western clique and lived in Brentwood, New York. But that's not a claim by DOJ that this is the only place this clique operates. And as I just demonstrated, there's an indictment that says exactly the opposite, that it's a major clique in the DC metro area.
First of all, incredible information that I hadn't heard before. Thank you for filling that in. So this group of MS-13 does in fact operate where this guy lived. That's the takeaway is they're lying. It's not just in New York. It's also in Maryland, Delaware, the DC area.
Correct. Right. These cliques often operate all over the country. And that's sort of, given what I had already figured out, that this guy played a little fast and loose with the facts on the interview sheet, because he omitted from the complaint the fact that this guy was arrested alongside two known MS-13 members. So then I decided, well, what other claims is this guy making up, or what other claims have no basis? And it's this claim that the Westerns clique is uniquely focused on Long Island, New York. And that's just false. That's just flat out false. And it's a falsehood that was echoed by both the district court and the appeals court as a way of discrediting the notion that Abrego Garcia was an MS-13.
Well, should those judges have known what you know? Could they have found that out had they looked?
I think oftentimes judges, especially in these like temporary restraining order situations, will rely on the lawyers to be honest. or
Well,
to,
that's a
and to cut
problem.
square
Wait a
corners.
second. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Now, you're a lawyer. I'm not saying that you're dishonest, but I mean, you know what I mean? I
Yeah,
mean, there are some that aren't so,
sloppy,
you know.
though. I think it was very strange for these opinions to cite the complaint as though it were evidence.
Right.
Because the complaint actually is not evidence, right? It's not so sworn statement in the same way like an affidavit is. But now that I've actually done the research, I'm not surprised that, there's nobody who was willing to say under oath that this Westerns clique only operates in Brentwood, New York, because that's just not true. And so if you just lied about that, you'd be perjuring yourself.
Amazing. Article3project.org is the website. It's Will Chamberlain, senior counsel there at the Article 3 Project. So now that we know this, whose fault is it? If you had to, and again, the judges will claim I can only know what they're presenting to me, and I took them as being honest. Did the DOJ drop the ball and not put this out there 2 weeks ago? Why are we just now finding out that two courts, immigration courts, both took the word of the undercover informant who does say this guy was in MS-13? Why are we just now finding that out?
Yeah. I mean, this information was in the original complaint, or some of it, right? It just wasn't highlighted by the lawyers. They obviously didn't.
They're not going to highlight it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't want to talk about the MS-13 stuff, obviously, and they knew some of this stuff would come, which is why they tried to discredit it in advance. But I blame the lawyer, right? First off, I mean, the DOJ is scrambling. And they had an issue with the line attorney that they had arguing the case at the district court level. They actually put him on leave,
right.
or her on leave,
right.
because she did such a terrible job, disclosed some attorney-client communications, just completely botched it.
Yeah.
So, but the person who knew better, and the person who had the time to do some real research, and the person who didn't have to make these claims that were false, is Abrego Garcia's lawyer.
Gotcha.
And he's the person who bears the responsibility for putting this falsehood not only out there in his complaint, but out there to the entire mainstream media, right? I've seen this claim that, we know that the confidential informant is lying because he asserted that Abrego Garcia was in a clique that wasn't even in Maryland. I've seen that claim all over the media from
everywhere.
The left. Yeah, and it's false. It's just false. Westerns clique operates in Maryland. It's in DOJ indictment documents.
Amazing. It's Will Chamberlain, Senior Counsel, Article 3 Project. Go in, again, donate to Article 3 Project to keep this great information coming in, article3project.org. It's also Mike Davis's organization. So as we get to where we are today, the biggest claim they make is that they deported him illegally. They made a mistake. The legacy media today on the treadmill said, as I'm watching the screen, for some reason, my gym makes me watch MSNBC, but it says, Maryland father mistakenly deported to El Salvador, still awaiting somebody to do something, whatever the hell it said. They keep saying he was mistakenly sent. Will, was there a mistake in them sending him?
There was. What was
the mistake?
Admitted this. The mistake was sending him to El Salvador before the withholding of removal was lifted. Right.
Gotcha.
Back in 2019, he had won withholding of removal to El Salvador. That doesn't mean he had asylum. He didn't. He was always a removable illegal alien. All that he had won was
just
the
not
right
there.
not to be deported to El Salvador in particular. So,
and the reason why there was the 18th Street gang that allegedly was a rival gang that his lawyer's not saying was a rival gang that Stephen Miller said doesn't exist. So let me ask you on the procedural stuff. Okay, so they did make a mistake. They didn't remove the withholding the deportation order from the court. Could they have done that because they're now using the 1798 Alien Enemies Act and they have the approval of the Supreme Court to use that act? Could they have removed it, then sent him, and none of this would even be happening?
So I don't think the Alien Enemies Act would be relevant because that proclamation referenced Trinidad, not MS-13 is my understanding. So
I thought it was both because they were both called terrorist organizations, but you're probably right. You're the smart one in this conversation. So all they had to do is like write up a document saying that order is gone or we're removing it. How does that happen? Do you have to go through court? What do?
You have to go to the immigration judge, say we would like to quash this withholding of removal. And there are two bases on which they could do that. The first is they could argue this guy's a member of MS-13, which has now been designated a designated terrorist organization.
Yes.
A foreign terrorist organization. And members of foreign terrorist organizations are ineligible for withholding removal, period.
Right.
Second, they could go to the immigration judge and argue circumstances in El Salvador have changed, i.e. Nayib Bukele is now president and has crushed all the gangs, and now El Salvador is one of the safest countries in the Western Hemisphere.
Right.
And that means that this guy no longer has a credible fear of persecution by the 18th Street gang, which means he can go home, which he should have done.
All right. So as far as due process goes, he doesn't get a trial in front of a jury, something like that. The due process is the government has to go and say, we want this squashed or quashed, and we want to send him back, because they could have sent him to anywhere else. The fact they sent him to El Salvador is the argument by his lawyers, right?
Yeah, and it's really the only good argument they have at this point. I mean, every other argument they're making is proving not to be strong. But they have this one point in which they're right. Yes, there was an administrative error. The Trump administration should have gotten this withholding of removal quashed before they sent this guy back to El Salvador. But I think the key thing to keep in mind is that even if the Trump administration had simply gone through the process that was required, the outcome would have been the same. He would be going back to El Salvador. And moreover, even if his lawyers get what they want and get this process going again, somehow get him released from CCOT, get him back to the United States, he'll still end up back in El Salvador.
Right.
Because there's no compelling argument that he should be able to stay in the United States.
The best he can hope for is that he is sent back. We would facilitate his returning. We don't have to actually do it, but we would facilitate it if it's going to happen. He would be back here. You get the quash. You send him back. He's going to the same place. So the argument by people like Van Hollen, do you think they're just not intelligent, or is there something else at play here?
I feel like the left is still at the mercy of the groups, meaning people like the ACLU, all these nonprofits, who sort of hijack the discussion on the left and are well connected in DC. And as a result, when the groups get all enamored with one particular idea, right, when they get all enamored with this one case, well, then the senators feel like they have to jump on top of it and that it's now the defining issue for the left. But in reality, I think most normal Americans are like, I've never seen you guys fight this hard for an American citizen as you're fighting for this wife-beating MS-13 gangbanger.
Exactly right. And I think it is a 70-30, if not 80-20 issue. When it comes to this guy, though, they keep on painting him again on MSNBC. Every picture, he's holding a kid, he's playing baseball, he's the father of the year. At the end of the day, the only case they have is that this quashing of the withholding order didn't happen before they sent him back. But what's really important here, and I brought this out on my show yesterday, and I know that you've talked about it as well, this guy is not from here. He was not legally here. He did not have asylum, didn't have a green card. Marrying an American didn't make him any more legal than he was before that. So he is now back in his homeland. He's a citizen. He's in El Salvador. How could we possibly compel Bukele to release him into El Salvador so we can go and grab him, put him on a plane, bring him back here to deport him again? We have no power to do that. And I think that's what the Supreme Court said 9-0, right? Well, didn't they say that a district judge can't tell the president what to do with his Article 2 foreign powers as the executive? I thought that was a big win for them, wasn't it?
Correct, right? Like the Supreme Court affirmed the district court in part and denied the district court in part. And a big part of where they wanted the district court to clarify their order was they said this idea that, you are ordering the Department of Justice to effectuate Abrego Garcia's return to the United States. Well, that clearly violates Article 2 authority, because you're saying that the Department of Justice needs to make it happen, right? To literally, if necessary, go in there with special forces or something and kidnap the guy. Right. Well, that's clearly beyond your authority to order. And so the Supreme Court agreed on that point. It's very strange to listen to the left. This is not a long order. It's a page long.
Right.
It's a little vague, but not that vague.
What do we know of the word facilitate? Does that mean we have to send a plane if Bukele says I'm going to release him? Does that mean just accept him if he comes back? Like Bukele said when he was in the White House, he's not going to smuggle him back across the border. So what does facilitate mean in this order, do you think?
Yeah, I think it probably means doing what we can on our end to bring him to the United States. So that exactly what we talked about. Like in the event that he were released from CCOT, that would say, well, we need to send a plane to bring him back. We need to give him an entry visa so he can enter at the border, or at least show up and get on the plane. That would be the kind of thing we would need to do.
Right.
If we didn't do those things, right, so in a world where Bukele released the guy and we refused to even, let him get on the plane to come to the United States, that would clearly be contempt of the court order.
It is. Will Chamberlain, Senior Counsel over at the Article 3 Project. Go to article3project.org. Always appreciate the time and the access. Boasberg, I guess today or yesterday, wants to hold everybody in contempt. He's going to, the DOJ won't investigate what he wants them to investigate. He's going to get somebody else to investigate it somehow. Well, I've read the Constitution a few times, and I could be wrong, and you're the expert. It only appears the Supreme Court is mentioned when we mention the judicial branch. It doesn't mention the other courts other than those that will be made by Congress. So we're hearing about impeachment. I think that's kind of dumb. We're hearing about the appellate court is going to do something. I think that's kind of slow. Why don't they just remove this court? Just remove his court. The Congress actually lets it exist, remove it, and then turn over his cases to some other nearby district court. I mean, couldn't they do that literally?
Yeah, they could also abolish the D.C. Superior Court and basically make the federal district court in D.C. It gets to do street crimes now. It gets to do D.C.
Right.
like D.C. related street crimes, gang crimes, drug crimes. That's what it can do.
And the reason for the question is he doesn't have the power he thinks he has. Is I think my point.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem with this attempt to find people in contempt here. Like his argument is, well, you still defied my court order. It's not obvious that they did that at all, by the way. I think that would lose on appeal,
right?
Because he's relying on his verbal statements rather than the written order. But it's also the fact that his order was unlawful. It was such a core violation of Article 2 that, of course, it's going to be defied. This isn't just, him ordering some private citizen litigant to comply. This is him ordering the president of the United States to use his foreign authority to bring back a foreign plane. I mean, it's the kind of thing that's so unlawful that a contempt finding is absurd.
Well, have you ever seen a court order that a judge said turn the plane around? I've never seen anything like that. I thought that was very, very strange. Is his suggestion, Will, do you think that the planes hadn't taken off yet? He gives the order verbally. He didn't do it written yet, and they still took off, and that's what he's mad at?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's mad that they didn't turn the planes around. I think he's mad that they all landed in El Salvador. Like he feels like his authority was defied, but he was exercising authority he didn't have, and he was also causing a constitutional crisis in and of himself. It's a remarkable thing. And we at the Article 3 Project, we have a push to try and have the guy impeached. We're not idiots. We know we're not going to get 67 votes in the Senate for that, but we still think he should go through it. And we don't say that lightly because most time, the normal case, plenty of judges make errors every day. It's not a reason to impeach them.
Well, he seems to think that he's right, though. That's the problem. He's not admitting anything.
Yeah, and this particular order was so egregious and such a violation of the way our government works. I mean, he decided he wanted to be president for a day or something. That can't be accepted.
Well, it's more than a day. It's been a few weeks now. He still thinks he's the president. It's Will Chamberlain, Senior Counsel, Article 3 Project. Will, thanks for spelling this out, and I want everybody to go and follow you on X and read these threads where you get very in-depth about exactly what this case is, what the lies are, what the misdirection is, what the misinformation is, and then we get down to the nitty-gritty. Yeah. Oh, by the way, the media didn't even take the time to find out that he had a restraining order that his wife brought because he allegedly beat her. So at some point, we have to stop pretending this guy is somebody that he's not, and I'm so glad that you're out there putting the truth out. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, brother. We appreciate you. We're back after this. Stay right here.